Before I tell you how I went from being mocked in my own kitchen to being paid $10,000 for a single recipe, hit that subscribe button, because if you've ever been underestimated, this story is for you. You'd think the first meal I ever cooked for my new in-laws would be memorable in a sweet, remember that first dinner kind of way, but no, it was memorable because my mother-in-law spat it out like she'd bitten into poison. Literally spat it into a napkin in front of everyone. Then came the snide comments. Did you use salt or accidentally dump a whole bag of cement? My poor son. He married a woman who can't even boil rice. Everyone laughed. Everyone except me. My cheeks burned hotter than the stew I'd spent 4 hours making from scratch. I still remember the clink of the utensils, the smirk on my husband's face as he said, "Babe, maybe stick to simpler stuff, like toast next time." He thought he was being funny, but it broke something in me, something small, but real. And it didn't end there. Every week I was expected to cook. And every time, my in-laws made it a sport to tear it apart. One time, I overheard my sister-in-law whispering in the kitchen, "I've tasted better food at gas stations." Another time, they actually ordered takeout after pretending to be too full from the meal I made. I smiled through all of it, but inside, I was quietly keeping score. They didn't know what food meant to me. They didn't know. I grew up in my grandmother's kitchen, a tiny space that always smelled like cinnamon, coriander, and warmth. My grandma used to say food is the only language people never forget. If you feed someone well, they remember your soul. I remembered everything she taught me. How to roast spices instead of using pre-packed ones, how to listen to a simmering pot like it was telling a story. But here, in this house, my food was a punchline. One night, I tried to talk to my husband. About it, Mark? I said they don't even give me a chance. They laugh at everything I make. He didn't look up from his phone. They're just teasing. Don't take it so seriously. I'm trying, I said, voice cracking. But it hurts. He sighed. Look, cooking isn't that important. Don't let it define you. And just like that, he erased one of the few things that actually made me feel whole. But I kept cooking, not for them. For me, in the quiet hours when no one was home. I would pull out my grandmother's handwritten recipe book, pages stained with turmeric and thyme. I'd experiment, adjust. I'd cook dishes with names they wouldn't even try to pronounce, but if they'd tasted them, they would have wept. Sometimes. I'd give the extra to our elderly neighbor, Patel. She'd smile and say, "My late husband would have proposed to you on the spot." Her son Ravi once knocked on our door just to ask what I'd made because it smelled like heaven had a kitchen. Those tiny compliments, they kept me going. One Sunday afternoon, things reached a boiling point. Literally, we were hosting a family brunch. And I'd made a delicate saffron rice pudding, a recipe passed down for generations. My mother-in-law took one bite and loudly said, "Is this supposed to be dessert or a science experiment?" Everyone laughed again. That laugh, that same laugh, over and over. I excused myself, went upstairs, sat on the edge of the bathtub, staring at my own reflection, and I whispered to myself, one day they'll beg for this food. One day, they'll pay for it. When I made that vow sitting on cold bathroom tiles with my eyes full of tears and my heart full of fire, I didn't know how or when it would happen. But if you've ever felt small, or overlooked, or mocked for something you loved, subscribe now, because the moment they taste their own medicine, it's coming. That night, I went back downstairs with a fresh smile, served tea like nothing had happened, but I knew I was done trying to impress them from now on. I was going to impress myself. It had been 2 days since the rice pudding disaster. Everyone had moved on, laughing over gossip, planning the next family gathering. But I couldn't shake it off. Not because of what they said, but because of what I didn't say back. I had swallowed the insult like I had the ones before it. But something inside me felt different now, like a match had been lit and was quietly burning at the edges of who I used to be late that night. I tiptoed into the kitchen. The rest of the house was asleep, even Mark. Snoring gently beside his phone charger, I pulled open the old wooden drawer and took out what felt like my most sacred object. Nani's recipe journal. The cover was cracked with age. Faded blue ink labeled it Zyke Recipes from the Heart. Inside, the pages smelled like cinnamon and cloves. I flipped past the tomato chutney, the turmeric lentil broth, until I found the one I needed, saffron Kia, for moments that matter. Nani always said food had memory. She used to hum as she cooked, wearing her cotton sari, a flower tucked into her braid. Every recipe had a story, a heartbreak. Healed, a joy remembered. This one? It was the first dish she ever made after losing her husband, a dish of grief, transformed into warmth. I whispered aloud as I read her notes, "Don't rush the milk. It needs to cry a little." The rice beak. It always knows when to stop. A pinch of salt. Trust me. No measurements, just emotion, just instinct. I set up the stove, poured the milk, and let it boil. And as the kitchen filled with that sweet, familiar scent, I felt her dot, like she was there with me, watching, guiding, dash. The next morning, I packaged the pudding in 2 small containers, one for Mrs. Patel, one for the florist next door who'd once asked, "What's that amazing smell when you cook?" I left both with little handwritten tags that said, "Made with memory." Later that afternoon, I was wiping down the kitchen counters when Mark walked in. "You were up late," he said, grabbing a soda. I nodded. "Just couldn't sleep." He glanced at the clean stovetop, cooking again. I shrugged. "Nothing important." He didn't ask more. He never did, but I saw it. The subtle wince when he looked at the spice jars. Like he couldn't stand the idea that I still tried. By evening, my phone buzzed. "Mrs. Patel, my nephew wants more of that dessert. Says it's better than any." "Restaurant? You have magic in your hands, Beta." "The florist. Hey, did you make that Kia? It's unreal. Want to sell it at my weekend market booth?" Seriously. I read both messages twice, 3 times. Then I smiled. It was small. But it was a spark, and I wasn't about to let it die. That weekend, I made 3 more dishes: Nani's spicy chickpea curry, her mango pickle, and a saffron pudding. I labeled them all Zyke, her name. Her spirit at the florist's weekend booth. We placed them in simple glass jars. Nothing fancy, no marketing team, but by noon, they were sold out. People asked questions like, "Do you have a food blog? Where can I order more? Can I meet the chef?" I said I was just helping my friend, that I wasn't a chef, that I wasn't anything special, but inside, I knew better. It started with 1 pudding, then a curry, then a line of people asking for more and every spoonful they tasted felt like another stitch in my self-worth. If you're still watching, you probably know what it's like to be quietly good at something, so hit subscribe right now, because this story is just heating up. When I came home that night, Mark didn't even notice I was gone. He was on the couch, watching YouTube videos of car crashes and action stunts. "Dinner's in the microwave," I said. He grunted. "Is it edible this time?" I didn't answer. I just stared at him, not with anger, but with clarity. He hadn't noticed the jars. He hadn't noticed the people asking for my food. He hadn't noticed me, but soon. The whole city would. If you've ever been set up to fail, you know the feeling. It's not loud. It's quiet. It creeps in between glances, whispered giggles, and a knife handed to you with the wrong edge up. That Sunday, I was granted the honor of cooking dinner for a big extended family gathering. My mother-in-law made it sound like a compliment. "Everyone's expecting something decent this time, Clara," she said with a sweet smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Please, don't embarrass us." I'd already planned the menu. A fragrant buttered chicken with roasted fenugreek. Garlic naan from scratch. Tamarind salad, and for dessert, something bold. Spiced date truffles dipped in cardamom dark chocolate. I spent the whole day preparing. Every move was precise, every taste tested twice, even as I chopped. I hummed Nanny's old tunes under my breath. I didn't just want this meal to be delicious. I wanted it to be unforgettable. But then the accident started. While I was checking the bread dough, my sister-in-law suddenly said, "Oh, I already added salt to the chicken curry for you. I figured you forgot." My face went blank. "You what?" "It's fine," she waved me off. "I used to help Mom all the time. You looked stressed." I wanted to scream. I hadn't forgotten. She'd just dumped tablespoons of salt into the one thing I needed. Perfect. I tried to save the curry, diluted it, added potatoes, skimmed off the oil, but it wasn't the same. Then the garlic naan dough, gone. Someone had thrown it out, claiming it looked spoiled. "It smelled weird," my mother-in-law said innocently. "It's probably best not to poison us." So I served what I could. A stripped-down version of what I'd planned. Flavors duller. Presentation clumsier. My hands were shaking as I placed each dish on the table. I saw the smirks even before the first bite. One aunt said, chewing slowly, "Very ... unique." "Is this a new diet?" I taste ... mostly water. Laughter again. That same sharp, unforgiving laughter, and Mark didn't say a word. He just reached for a slice of pizza my brother-in-law had casually ordered, just in case. I sat through the entire meal in silence. The only sound in my head was the pounding of my own heartbeat after dinner. I went to the guest bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the toilet seat like a child hiding during hide dash and dash seek. My phone buzzed. It was Ravi, the florist's son. "Hey, just saw your recipe reposted on Tastes of Heritage. They loved your spice truffles, said it was the flavor bomb of the year." I blinked, then blinked again. Tastes of Heritage had over 500,000 followers, and they had featured my dessert suddenly. Everything around Meetha, laughter, the ruined dishes. The pitying eyes faded into static, because something real had happened. Something they couldn't erase with salt or sabotage. That night, they laughed at my food again, but outside that house, in the world that mattered, my recipe was going viral. And if you've ever been mocked while secretly building your empire, subscribe, because this revenge, it's not loud. It's legendary. When I stepped out, I passed the kitchen and saw my mother-in-law whispering to my husband, "She's just not made for this, Mark. Some girls are wives, some are distractions." He nodded like a statue. Didn't even look up. Something inside me went still. Not angry, just done. The next morning, I got a DM from the editor of Tastes of Heritage. "Who are you? We need more of your recipes. I shared your truffles with a friend of mine, a celeb chef opening a heritage series in LA. He wants to talk, like now." I froze. My fingers trembled over the keyboard. "Sure, happy to connect." Later that day, I got on a Zoom call. There he was, smiling, world famous, framed by clean countertops and a marble tile kitchen. "You're the dessert whisperer," he joked. I laughed shyly. "Just someone who knows how to listen to spices." He leaned forward. "I'm doing a private tasting next week, invitation only. I want your truffles there. I'll pay $10,000 for the rights to present it as a featured heritage dessert." I felt tears prick the edge of my eyes. Not from the money, from the validation, from being seen. I ended the call, sat in silence for 5 full minutes, then went to the spice rack, pulled out the handwritten tag from my first test batch, and added something to the bottom. "Zyke now worth 10,000. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the ticking of the wall clock and the distant barking of stray dogs. But none of it felt real, because a part of me still couldn't believe it. $10,000 for one recipe, one dessert. One forgotten girl with a notebook full of magic by morning. I was still in disbelief. I double-checked the email, read the contract 3 times. It was real. The celebrity chef Ethan Dyer wanted exclusive Use of my spiced date truffle recipe for a tasting dinner cookbook and live demo. He would give full credit to my alias Zaka and pay me for licensing. He even wrote, "I haven't tasted anything this emotionally layered in a long time." Whoever taught you this, they didn't just teach cooking, they taught you soul. My fingers hovered over the reply button before I finally typed back, "Deal." One night they laughed at my cooking. The next night, world-class chef offered me $10,000 to serve it to the elite. If you've ever been underestimated, hit that subscribe button right now, because some recipes are written. In Fire, the next few days passed like a dream. The chef's assistant sent me a list of guest names, influencers, critics, investors. The dinner would be hosted at a 5-star rooftop hotel in the city with a panoramic skyline view. Gold-plated dinnerware, live music, and velvet linens, and smack in the middle of the dessert menu. My truffles. I told no one at home. Not Mark, not his mother, not his sister. Why should I? They didn't deserve to know. Instead, I practiced in secret, refining each detail, adjusting ingredients by a pinch, letting flavors sleep overnight before waking them with heat. I even bought new kitchen tools with the first advance payment, every time I stirred. I heard Nani's voice. A recipe doesn't just live in your hands. Beta. Okay. It lives in your ears, your nose, your memory. Listen. On the day of the event, I left the house early. Mark barely noticed. "Off to meet your friend, the florist." He muttered, eyes still on his phone. I just smiled. Something like that? The hotel ballroom was unlike anything I'd seen in person. Chandeliers, dripping crystal light. Tables dressed in satin. Servers gliding like shadows. Chef Ethan greeted me with a warm smile and guided me to the backstage kitchen where my truffles were already prepped by his team down to the last sprinkle of rose petal dust. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded. My voice was quiet but steady. More than ever. As guests began arriving, I watched through the curtain. Some faces I recognized from television, others from food blogs. Few even from social media reels with millions of followers. And then I saw them, my in-laws, walking in. Confidently, Mark's mom in her designer, sorry, his sister in high heels too high for comfort, even Mark himself, adjusting his tie like he was the groom at someone else's wedding. I almost laughed out loud, apparently. Chef Ethan had invited select guests from the local cultural community to honor the roots of the recipe. My in-laws had RSVP'd, without knowing whose recipe it was. Poetic dinner was served course by course. Wine pairing, goat. Cheese canapes, smoked aubergine with saffron sauce. Each dish got its moment, but none quite stirred the Kate. Room. Until dessert. The host took the mic. And now, our final course, a dessert inspired by legacy. Crafted in silence, refined in fire. The spiced date truffle from the culinary artist known only as Zyke. The servers brought out black porcelain plates with 3 glistening truffles each. Steam still faintly rising. Cocoa dust. Pistachio crumble. A whisper of cardamom. The room went silent as the first bites landed. Forks paused. Eyes widened. One woman gasped. Another whispered, "Oh my God." A food critic said, "This is emotional." And then came Mark's mother. She took a bite, chewed slowly, eyes darting. Then she whispered, "This tastes familiar." Her daughter frowned. "You're right. Where have we tasted this before?" Mark looked confused. "It's just some fancy chocolate." But his mother's expression had already changed. A slow, rising discomfort. A tension she couldn't place. Then Chef Ethan took the mic again. "I know many of you are wondering, who is Zake? I'll let her speak for herself." He looked backstage and nodded. I stepped out wearing a simple black dress, hair tied back, no makeup, no spotlight. "Just me." The crowd clapped. My in-laws froze. Mark's jaw slackened. I walked to the mic. "Good evening, I'm Clara, also known as Zak. This dessert, it's not just mine. It's my grandmother's. It's the taste of being underestimated. It's what happens when laughter turns into applause. Thank you for believing in flavor and in people like me. The crowd rose to their feet, standing ovation, tears, claps. An investor asked for a business card, and my in-laws. They sat quietly, like salt statues. They called my food trashed out now. They watched strangers cry over it. If you want to see how this story ends, and trust me, it gets even better, tap subscribe, because the next course is revenge. Served cold the night after the gala tasting. I didn't go home. I went to Mrs. Patel's instead. She poured me chai without asking and simply said, "I watched the video." Your grandmother would have danced. It had already gone viral. Chef Ethan had posted the entire reveal on his Instagram, from the first bite to the standing ovation, within hours. Zake was trending. Within a day, I had 30,000 followers. Within a week, I had 6 recipe licensing offers, a podcast invitation, and a message from a local food network. But Mark didn't say a word. No text, no call, not even a missed notification. I stayed at Mrs. Patel's for 3 nights, not because I couldn't go back, but because I didn't want to shrink again. Did he watch the video? Yes. I knew he did because on the 4th day, he showed up outside Mrs. Patel's porch, holding flowers. And fake humility, Clara, he began. I saw everything. You were amazing. I mean, really? I nodded. Thank you. I didn't. No, you were serious about this. You never said. I smiled. I did, you just didn't listen. He looked down. Look, I've been thinking, maybe we should start fresh. You and me. I'll even invest in your business if you want. That word invest hung in the air like a joke. I took a sip of chai and looked him in the eyes. You laughed when they mocked me. You told me not to take it seriously. You only noticed me when the world did. So tell me, Mark, are you in love with my dream? Or just scared you're not in it anymore? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. He loved the applause, not the effort. He loved the spotlight, not the spark. If you've ever had someone try to ride your success after laughing at your struggle, tap subscribe, because the next chapter is about walking away with your head held high. I moved out 2 weeks later. Mrs. Patel's nephew, Ravi, helped me get a small studio apartment. Cozy, with a white-tiled kitchen and lots of natural light. That kitchen became my canvas. I launched a channel, Zake Recipes, no face, no filters. Just hands, spices, stories, my first video. The spiced date truffle with subtitles in 5 languages. It hit 1 million views in a week. Food blogs began calling it the most emotional dessert on YouTube. One outlet said it tastes like heartbreak and healing all in one bite, and the comments. My mom cried tasting this. It felt like I was eating poetry. Who is this woman? She's cooking with her ancestors. Then came the big email. A publishing house wanted to do a cookbook. Zake, recipes from the heart. They wanted my stories, my grandmother's memories, my process, everything. They even offered a $25,000 advance. I stared at the screen, trembling. Not because of the money, because I could see. Her. Naani. Smiling, stirring, watching. I lit a candle for her that night, placed her recipe journal next to it, whispered, "We did it." And for the first time since she passed, I didn't feel like I was cooking alone. Meanwhile, back at Mark's house, things weren't so sweet. His mother started a cooking blog. That flopped. His sister posted fusion recipes, met with laughter and memes. They even tried copying one of my dishes, but people knew. You can't fake flavor and you can't steal soul. The stage lights were warm too. Warm. I dabbed my forehead discreetly as the host wrapped up her monologue. Her voice was smooth, her laughter rehearsed. Her heels far taller than mine. Behind her, the studio audience buzzed with whispers and excitement. In a few moments, I'd be stepping out. Not as Clara, the ignored daughter-in-law, not even as just Saika, the secret name I once hid behind, but as both I glanced at the monitor beside the curtain. The telecast was already live. Footage played of me stirring cardamom into milk, slicing ginger with gentle precision, wiping away tears as I told a story about Nani teaching me how to listen. To food. The host's voice narrated in the background. From family ridicule to culinary stardom are next. Guest's story isn't just about food. It's about flavor, fire, and finding your voice. Please welcome Clara Zock. Applause erupted. And just like that, stepped into the light. They laughed at me in a kitchen. Now they clap for me on national television. If you've ever felt small, just wait. Because growth doesn't come in noise. It comes in flavor. Subscribe. I sat across from the host on a cream-colored couch. Cameras rolled. The questions came fast. Where did you learn to cook like this? How did you come up with the name ZK? Is it true your own family once mocked your cooking? Answered each with honesty. No rage. No dramatics. Just calm, quiet truth. Yes, they laughed. But I kept stirring, 'cause I wasn't cooking for applause. I was cooking for healing then. She hit me with it. We actually have someone in the audience who's been following your journey very closely. Froze. She smiled, then turned toward the audience. Ma'am, would you like to join us? And just like that, Mark's mother stood up, wearing her usual pearls, hands folded in practiced humility. Her smile barely hiding the awkwardness. She took the spare seat on stage, and the air thickened. Hello, Clara, she said. Her voice sweet as poison. It's been a journey, hasn't it? I nodded. It has. I just wanted to say, I didn't realize what you were building, what you were capable of. We all make mistakes, don't we? Her words were polite, her tone. Cold butter on burnt toast. I stayed still, silent, measured. Maybe one day we can all sit down as a family and laugh about this. The host leaned in. Clara. I turned slightly toward her and the camera. I think forgiveness is a beautiful thing, I began. The audience nodded. But not every apology needs an invitation. Sometimes people show you who they are in quiet moments, not the big ones. And while I wish her well, my table is full. And the food I serve now, it doesn't come with side dishes of shame. The host leaned back. The crowd erupted in applause. She tried to rewrite my beginning, but I was too far into my middle. If you've ever been asked to forgive someone who never fed your soul, only drained it, tap subscribe, because boundaries are the final recipe. After the show, the producers swarmed me. Sponsors wanted to collaborate. A publisher doubled my advance. An airline offered to sponsor my travel vlog, ZK Across Borders. And the best part, a handwritten letter was waiting in my studio kitchen the next day from Chef Ethan. There are cooks, there are chefs, and then there are women like you who cook with thunder and memory. I want to partner. Let's build a brand, one where soul is the secret ingredient. I stood in my new kitchen that night. Bright tiles, saffron-stained counters. A framed photo of Nani on the wall. I tied my white apron, smiled at my reflection, and began preparing a new dish, one I'd been afraid of for years. Clarity with a garnish of confidence and a whole lot of peace. 1 year later, the cafe had doubled in size. The corner bookstore next. Door shut down and I bought it, not to erase stories, but to serve new ones with cinnamon and cardamom. ZK Calf School was now home to young women from all walks of life. Single mothers, runaways, even a few former domestic workers, each with a story to tell. And a recipe to reclaim. Every Saturday, I hosted what we called Flame. Sessions, live demos with guests, and open mic storytelling. Women laughed, cried, stirred pots, and poured pieces of their past into hand-me-down pans. One girl once said, "You don't just teach us to cook, Clara. You teach us to remember who we were before the world told us to be small." The cookbook became a bestseller. Psyche, Recipes from the Fire made it to 3 countries, translated into 4 languages. My grandmother's notes, scribbles, and prayers were now sitting on shelves in Paris, Toronto, and Dubai. One review called it the warmest rebellion ever printed. As for my in-laws, they opened a food channel on TikTok. It tanked after people noticed similarities to my recipes. When Mark's mom tried to go live during one of my interviews, the host chuckled and said, "We celebrate origin stories here, not stolen ones." Met someone to Ravi, and I took things slow. He never asked me to shrink. He tasted every dish like it deserved a story, like I deserved to be heard before being loved. And that was new. One evening, I found an old video on my phone, me in the kitchen. Years ago, sweaty, stressed, overlooked, trying to learn Nani's Kia recipe. Fumbling the sugar ratio, she was behind the camera laughing. "You'll get it. Beta. But first, burn it once. Only then will you understand the sweet." I watched the video twice, then whispered, "You were right." Underscore to every woman who's been told she's just a cook, just a wife, just a girl who should stay in the background. Remember, the background is where the fire starts, and fire creates flavor. Hit subscribe for more stories, where pain turns into purpose and broken recipes become the meals they never forget.